Okay, I am under the models and I can see that the MVC Music Store db.cs has been created for me automatically. When we said add a controller and then we mentioned the model and the database context there, Entity Framework is able to understand that, okay, I need to create and store an album object, a .NET object called album in a database. And the album is referencing artist and genre, so those objects have to be also stored in the database. So because of that, what it did is it created something called, this is my class. It says that I have to have a database set that has albums. One should have artists, one should have genre. So it understands that, okay, this is going to be the liaison between the actual database and your model. So your model objects are here, but then every time any action has to happen on the database, we are going to be using MVC Music Store DB. That's the object that we'll be using. It is derived from, it inherits from the DB context class. So basically any type of query we write, everything happens through this object. Okay, so what happens now is, so we created, let's actually run this application, see what happens. Or let's just look in here just really quick. This is going to be really simple. So if you see here in the index method, some magic is happening with the database object here, right? See, this was defined for us. This object was defined and used anytime any type of retrieval with data happens or any type of posting happens with data. So you can see this is a link query. Okay. Again, a link is going to be a query language that's part of the .NET framework. It's not just for like databases. You can use it with XML. You know, any kind of data we can use link queries with. Link queries are more intuitive, and also like the developer does not have to spend a lot of time understanding how SQL queries are written, or how you know, as and when a database changes, they have to understand the nuances of how things happen. But in this case, this is more like a unified language where you know, you can access any database using one language, one query language, and it's very intuitive. So if you look here, it seems to say from my database, give me all the albums and include artists and genre. This is more like a join statement in SQL. If you've done SQL, it says from my album, get me all the albums. And because the albums are referencing artists and genre, it is saying include the artists and genre also. I mean, it is possible to like filter queries, but in this case, when we access the index, we just want everything to be listed for us. And then that nice package, this is going to be like a bunch of albums, right? The data is being sent to the view as a list. And then the view is going to manipulate that and then like show us the results. So let's build what we have so far. Okay, that's actually good news that okay, so I'm opening the web config just to take a look to see how the connections are like configured here by Entity Framework. So normally anytime we use databases, there is a connection string that tells the application how to connect my music store database to an actual SQL database, right? So that is what's given here. You can see that Anytime we look for MVC Music Store database and do processing on that, the actual data source is going to be on my local, and then it gives it a name. So that's what happens. So a local database connection created, a SQL Server database will be created for me. So there are like different behaviors in terms of when does a database get created? Do we create a database every single time? Or if one exists, we don't create, so stuff like that. So there is a way for us to actually define that. The default behavior for entity framework with MVC is that, you know, create a database if it does not exist. So that is the way it works. So in our situation, we do not have a database. So the very first time we launch this application, it is going to create a database for us. Okay. If you go here to View and Server Explorer, okay, this is where we can look for databases, right? So let's first execute this application.